Let's start the show. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience, and I've continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. But enough of me, I'm here for you. On today's episode of the FD Show, we're continuing our All-32 NFL team preview, breaking down every NFL team through the lens of fantasy football. Today, I think we finalize our AFC North previews with the Cincinnati Bengals. But before we get started, I need 3 quick things from you. First off, smash that subscribe button, power running back style, to show your support for the channel and that you would never miss a video. And also to show your support for this video in particular, hit that like button like an open receiver, downfield. And last but not least, shoot me a text, 330-302-1554. That's going to be my source and my hub for all of my fantasy advice this season. If you have any sort of fantasy football related question, whether it's advice, who should I draft, player A or player B, or maybe you have a trade offer that you want to go over with somebody, that is the place to hit me up. It's going to be an excellent time over there for personalized content. But without further ado, let's jump right into it with the Cincinnati Bengals, who are one of the more fun and interesting teams for me to talk about this season. I'm really excited for the direction of this team. I'm not sure how it's going to look this year, but I know down the line it's going to be really exciting, and they do have the potential this season to do some great things on the offensive side of the ball and for fantasy purposes. So let's just jump right into it with the number 1 overall pick from this year's NFL Draft, Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals' new franchise quarterback, hopefully, most likely, out of LSU. He lit the college football world on fire last season, and my player comparison for him is Peyton Manning with athleticism. I feel like that's a very important distinction. He's not just a pocket passer. He's got that hashtag sneaky athleticism that he can accumulate some fantasy points on the ground for you. We're going to go over that in just a moment or so. But let's just go over the measurables for Joe Burrow. So he's 6'3", 220. He's just a big dude. He's just built like an absolute tank. Hand size of 9 inches. I don't care about hand size, but I was going to put speed on there. If you've seen any of the other rookie profiles, I usually do speed. But there was no 40 time for Joe Burrow because quarterbacks and just the way this offseason was, it was a little bit weird as far as combine stuff, so there was no speed. Measurement for Joe Burrow in that way. But let's go over what he did in college. So here's the issue with Joe Burrow, is that we really only have a 1-year sample size of him in college. He started off at Ohio State, didn't play there because Ohio State just consistently has extremely talented quarterbacks, so it's hard for some guys to get onto the field in that way. Transfers to LSU. His first year in LSU, doesn't do a whole lot, but then he just absolutely took over college football last season. 402 completions on 527 pass attempts. That's insane. He threw for over 5,600 yards, and he also rushed for 368 yards. So that's really what I'm talking about, right? That is a very high number for a guy that you would probably consider a standard pocket passer. And so because you have that upside, like, once again, this goes back to the whole rushing quarterback thing, to where he's able to easily minimize his mistakes for fantasy. So once again, if he fumbles and he loses 2 points, or if he throws an interception and he loses 2 points there, it's very easy for Joe Burrow to make up those loss of points with his rushing ability and then some, because he is capable of scrambling and getting out of the pocket. So as far as touchdown goes, you guys have probably heard the stat that he threw for the most touchdowns in college history with 60. I believe that's what the number was. But regardless, he did throw for 60 touchdowns, but it says 65 there because, once again, that rushing athleticism, he rushed for 5 touchdowns as well, and he only threw 6 interceptions all season. Joe Burrow was incredible. He was playing in an NFL-style offense at LSU, which we love to see, and that offense also featured a lot of 4 wide receiver sets, sometimes 5 wide receivers. They were absolutely loaded at every single position last year. And that's why I'm really excited for Joe Burrow, not only this season, but for beyond. Because the way that this Cincinnati offense is structured is they already have weapons. And because of that, you're sliding in a quarterback who we've seen do this with other NFL talent around him. You look at Justin Jefferson, Chase is coming out next year, Thad Moss, tight end for now the Washington football team. Oh boy, that's not great. So he's had talent around him, and now he gets the opportunity to do this on the NFL stage, and I'm really excited for Joe Burrow. Obviously, the draft capital speaks for himself, number 1 overall pick. But let's talk about where he's going in drafts, kind of a dynasty outlook as well, because that's something I really want to talk about for these rookies in particular. So let's just talk about redraft. Redraft, oh no, that's his running back 24. That's supposed to be quarterback 24. I apologize. He's going into late in drafts, round 14. So if you want to take your deep shot on Joe Burrow, I don't hate that. I know their schedule to start off the year is a little bit rocky, and that's something that we don't love to see for a rookie quarterback with 0 preseason games. So you might be struggling your first few weeks or so there, which I don't necessarily like. I like to start off the season nice and hot. But I also have Joe Burrow ranked at quarterback 21. But honestly, that feels kind of low. I'm ahead of him. I'm ahead of ADP in terms of that. But there is a lot of room for the upside of Joe Burrow, and that's just why I'm really excited, because he's going to cost you nothing. There's a lot of speculation that he's going to break the rookie touchdown record set by Baker Mayfield in 2018. But I'm going to pull up my rankings real quick. So as far as Joe Burrow goes, I have him 21. Who do I have ahead of him? I have Big Ben ahead of him. That could easily be flipped. Baker Mayfield, that's another coin flip. Ryan Tannehill, that's a coin flip. Phillip Rivers, that's also a coin flip. So you're just like, once you start getting into like this range of like 17 and later, it basically for me just kind of depends upon preference. And because of that, I don't have the issue with taking Joe Burrow. Like if you're looking at Joe Burrow and you're looking at the supporting cast around him, because that's the difference between I think Joe Burrow and a lot of other rookie quarterbacks that we've seen in the past, specifically guys who were drafted number 1 overall, is I think the Bengals have the best offensive supporting cast that a rookie quarterback could ever ask for. You're looking at a guy like AJ Green and Tyler Boyd just as your 1-2 on the outside and in the slot. You have Joe Mixon in the backfield. They draft T. Higgins, who we're going to talk about, and the tight end position. That's a little bit of a sneaky play, and we're going to talk about him as well. I won't reveal who he is just yet. But I'm really excited for just Joe Burrow's overall season. But there is just some hesitancy just in the fact that there is no preseason. This is a rookie who's playing in his first set of NFL games. And so the first half of the season might be a little bit rocky. But if you can persevere, absolutely just ride out the wave, because Joe Burrow is going to cost you nothing. Joe Burrow is going to cost you nothing. He's most likely going to break that rookie touchdown record, like I just said. Cincinnati's going to throw the ball a ton. I know their defense improved quite a bit this offseason, but I still think that they are going to rely on that throwing game, on that passing attack, especially just because they are going to run a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, I believe. And I'm really excited just for Joe Burrow. So now we can shift to Dynasty here a little bit. I debated, and I haven't had my rookie draft yet, so I'm kind of giving my league some tea here. There is a world where I take Joe Burrow, and I don't. So we play in a single quarterback dynasty league, and so I don't think Burrow's going to go in the first round just based on my projections and based on my mock draft. I think there's a slight chance, but overall, I think it's likely that I can get Joe Burrow in the second round, and if I can do that, that might be very hard for me to pass up. I've considered it. I've been going back and forth on it for a few months now. My quarterback is Lamar Jackson in that league, so I'm not too stressed on it. But if anything were to happen for Lamar, I would love to just have Joe Burrow slotted in as the next man up, because I think Joe Burrow could be incredible not only this season but also for years to come because of the way that this offense is set up. Now let's shift towards the running game real quick, and I want to talk about Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is one of my favorite running backs. I love the way he plays. And unfortunately for Joe Mixon, it was really ugly last season, and it was tough as a Joe Mixon owner for the early parts of the season. Despite that, though, despite the rough finishes early on, he finished as running back 11 in standard, running back 13 in PPR. I mean, there was a point last season, you can look at those running back 3 finishes at 5, and he even had a few running back 4 games or worse there. It was really tough for Joe in the early part of last season. A lot of guys were cutting him. He was that bad. This was a guy that you drafted in the second round of your draft, and people were wondering if you should cut Joe Mixon, and some people did. I held out, and I won my championship because of Joe Mixon, because this is what we're going to get into. Joe Mixon is such a talented running back, and you saw that last season despite the struggles early on. Last year, when he finally came around towards the back end, he really helped you win your leagues. He had 6 games as a running back 1, 3 games as a running back 2, and that's what you're expecting out of Joe Mixon. And he's also one of the very few workhorse running backs in the NFL with 278 carries, 35 receptions, 1,100 rushing yards, 287 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. That's kind of the concern always about Joe Mixon, is that they do have Giovanni Bernard, who I'm not going to talk about here because I don't think he's going to be too valuable for fantasy this season, because there are so many other pieces here in this offense that I'd rather talk about. But the question has always been, when is Joe Mixon really going to make that leap into one of the upper echelon top tier running backs in the NFL? Maybe a guy that you end up taking in the early first round after that set of 4, or maybe he actually jumps into that category of that first set of 4 and makes that into a set of 5. Regardless, though, I think that this is the best opportunity that Joe Mixon has to prove himself as one of those top tier fantasy running back options. This team is going to be so fun offensively. They're going to move the ball, unlike last year where their quarterback play was absolutely horrendous. And we're going to see what Joe Mixon can do in the Zach Taylor style Los Angeles offense. And I'm really, really excited for it. You can see I have him ranked as my running back 17. His ADP is running back 8 going in the back of the first round. I love Joe Mixon at that draft price. I'm not sure, especially if you're getting him like on that turn to where you have that option of taking Joe Mixon and then another stud wide receiver, or if you want to load up running back at the turn just in case anything were to happen, because maybe there is that off chance that we see a little bit of a repeat of Joe Mixon struggling early on in the season because of this new quarterback and just the whole system. They're all trying to figure it out on the fly. So just having that extra running back on the turn just has a little bit of an insurance policy is really intriguing to me. I want to talk about the adjusted score here. He averaged 13 points a game. He played in all 16, and his new finish was running back 17. So that actually looks like it hurts him. But I do think it just comes down to the fact that he was so bad early on last season. I want to pull up something real quick. I'm going to run through, let's see, text that contains. I'm pulling up my week 1 through 17 finishes, and I'm just going to read you off a few things that I find are really, really interesting, okay? So for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, for the first 7 weeks, he had 1 finish as a running back 1, 0 finishes as a running back 2, 3 finishes as a running back 3, and it looks like 3 finishes as a running back 4 or worse. So that's when you saw everybody start to panic about Joe Mixon. And then we get to his numbers in the second half of the year, to where you're looking at week 10 onwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 games as a running back 1, 2 games as a running back 2, 1 game as a running back 3, and that's when he ended up just dominating, helping your team in the playoffs with great performances in week 14 and 15. Kind of let you down in week 16, but then he bounced back in week 17 if you play in a week 17 championship. Overall, love Joe Mixon. I've always loved him. I think this is the year where he's going to take that leap because he's always had the talent, and now we get the opportunity in a much better projected offense. And on top of that, it's a contract year for Joe Mixon. And I love running backs on a contract year because they always overperform because they want to get the bag. Hashtag secure the bag. And Joe Mixon's going to get paid this offseason. By who? I don't know. But he's going to put his best foot forward. He's going to get the ball 270 plus times. And I'm really excited for this Bengals offense, largely because of Joe Mixon. Now we go from one player who kind of let you down, but then bounced back, to a player who repeatedly let you down all last season, and that was AJ Green. Oh boy, I have a lot to say here. So all last offseason, so AJ Green gets hurt in preseason, or it was in practice. He gets hurt in practice. They were practicing, I believe, in Dayton, and Dayton's field is not the best. And so AJ Green tweaks his ankle during, I believe it was like in between like the turf and the asphalt, like the track area. So he tweaks his ankle, just busts it completely, and we never know when he's going to come back. And as soon as this happened, AJ Green's draft price starts falling, falling, falling. He was originally going in the third. He's now going in like the fifth and sixth and even the seventh round. And now the question became, do you draft AJ Green? And I was on the side of yes. I'm like, AJ Green's going to be back. Whenever he's been on the field, he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I actually had a conversation with a friend the other day, and I said AJ Green is the top 5 NFL wide receiver. I think I had him at number 5 because the question was who is the 5th. As far as the talent level, I'm all in on AJ Green. But back to the story. We heard rumblings of, he's going to be back in just a few weeks. You don't have to worry about him. He'll be back in week 3 or 4. And AJ Green doesn't come back week 3 or 4. And then it's, 5 or 6 and he'll be fine. Well, he never showed up then either. He's going to come back after the bye week, week 9. Oh, he's not going to come back after the bye week? Well, what about in weeks 12, 13, and 14 for your fantasy playoffs and after that? Yeah? It looks good? It looks promising? Not so fast. So we went through this whole cycle of AJ Green last year to where you had to decide if you were willing to part ways with a guy who you spent a 6th-round draft pick on, a guy who could be an absolute superstar if he gets back on the field, and he's taking up a roster space, and he's just sitting on your team, on your bench, and you're wondering if I should pick somebody else instead, if I should just hold him, am I waiting for the return, what am I doing with AJ Green? And ultimately, it pretty much just came crashing down. Now, luckily for me, I drafted extremely well last season. I won my league last year without having my 5th-round pick in AJ Green and without having my 7th-round pick in Lamar Miller. I missed on both those, and despite that, I still had enough depth to where I was able to recover and navigate the season in full. That's also kind of why I do what I do here. Regardless, though, it wasn't great for AJ Green owners last season just because of that. And the injury concern has always been a problem for AJ Green, especially recently. When he's on the field, he's great for you, and when he's off of it, he's going to obviously just kill your fantasy team because he's going to take up a roster spot. He gets injured a little bit too frequently for my liking, but he's just so talented. So we're going to pull up his 2018 finish because it's kind of the same story and kind of what I'm speaking about here. So his 2018 finish, because he didn't play in 2019, was a standard. He was wide receiver 37, PPR wide receiver 40. But I want to talk about the adjusted score because this is what I'm talking about. His points per game was 14 for a wide receiver. That's great in half-point PPR. He played in 9 games, and his new finish in 2019, so once again, for any players that missed the 2019 season, we're taking their 2018 finish and applying it to 2019 and adjusting from there. He's now the wide receiver 8. He is so damn talented and so damn good. And he's currently going in the back of the 5th round. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But going back to 2018, 77 targets, 46 catches, 694 yards, and 6 touchdowns. A few games as a wide receiver 1, multiple games as a wide receiver 2, and 1 game as a wide receiver 3. AJ Green, man, he's been doing this for a long time. And every time he's on the field, man, he's going to produce for your fantasy team. So his ADP is wide receiver 26. I have him ranked at wide receiver 28, and that feels low. I'm just kind of concerned about what AJ Green's value is going to be in 2020. In an offense with a new rookie quarterback, who, like I just said, I expect him to be great. But there are a few other guys here. Tyler Boyd, John Ross, T. Higgins. Who falls in line where? How valuable is AJ Green going to be? How many targets is he going to get? Is he still the same guy that we knew coming off of injury? There's just a lot of question marks around AJ Green, and the way that I have this set up in my head is I'll take whoever falls between Tyler Boyd and AJ Green. I don't want to be the guy that takes one of them first. I want to be the guy that takes the other one second. Because to me, they have very, very similar outcomes. But we've seen how great AJ Green can be. And the ranking of 28, I hate myself for it. I admittedly hate myself for it. And I should probably make a video just going through all my rankings and adjusting again. I need to turn that kind of into a series, but there's a lot of content to make. But I want to pull this up real quick. Who are the wide receivers I have ranked ahead? So, because this is the question, right? The question becomes, and when you're drafting in that 5th, 6th round, what are you looking for? For me, I tend to look for guys who I think can finish in the top 10. I'm looking for a lot of upside there, and I believe AJ Green also kind of has a safe floor as well. So I'm going to give you some names here, and even now that I'm looking at this, there's definitely room that I can probably move him up. So some of the names that I have ahead of AJ Green are Devontae Parker, Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen. I'm telling you right now, I'm probably taking AJ Green over all of those. Now that I'm really looking at it, I don't know what Devontae Parker is going to be this year. Terry McLaurin, yes, he's the number 1, but I hate the quarterback situation in Washington. Stephon Diggs is intriguing as a late-round target because we've seen what Diggs can do, but now he's also entering a new quarterback situation. That's the thing. All these players are really just up in the air as far as quarterback play, and so you have to ask yourself, which quarterback of this group do you like the most? Do you like Ryan Fitzpatrick? Potentially, just because you know he's going to air it out. Do you like Dwayne Haskins? Do you believe in him? Josh Allen, are you a fan of are you a fan of his ability to throw deep, even though he's not very accurate at it? And what can Stephon Diggs add to that offense? Are you all in on Justin Herbert or Tyrod Taylor in Los Angeles? Or are you all in on Joe Burrow in Cincinnati? That, to me, quarterback play is always kind of the tiebreaker deciding between wide receivers. It's just a very easy way for you to just decide, because talent for wide receiver is one thing, but can he get the ball consistently? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. So now we're going to talk about the other wide receiver for the Bengals, who's a great fantasy asset and is just an ascending wide receiver in the NFL, and that is Tyler Boyd. His 2019 finish was wide receiver 25 in standard, 23 in PPR. He had 148 targets, 90 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He was the centerpiece of this Cincinnati Bengals offense last season. However, I don't think he is a number 1 wide receiver, which is why I love that he plays in the slot, because he's going to get those ancillary targets the right word? He's going to get those secondary targets, but those targets are still going to be extremely valuable because of the fact that the slot usually sees different or lesser types of coverage, because the slot isn't necessarily valued as much as defending the outside. But in 2019, he had 3 finishes as a wide receiver 1, 2 finishes as a wide receiver 2, and 3 finishes as a wide receiver 3. He was startable for you pretty much all year. It was just really good. But once again, now that you look at those numbers, he had 8 games where he finished inside the top 36, 8 games where he was outside the top 36, and that just comes down to quarterback play. Cincinnati, it was so bad, but you can still see the numbers. He got tons of targets, nearly 150, caught the ball 90 times. He is a very, very talented wide receiver despite bad quarterback play. And this is what I was talking about when it comes to Tyler Boyd or AJ Green. Who should you take? And I want the guy who's going later in drafts. Because if you know one thing about Joe Burrow, if you watched LSU last year, you know that he loves to throw to the slot. He had Justin Jefferson there last season, who is going to be an incredible wide receiver in the NFL. So I expect that to kind of happen again, just because it feels like that's kind of his natural progression of things, is that he likes to throw the ball there. It's not that he doesn't. It's not that he hates throwing the ball on the outside. It's just that I feel like it's a little bit more natural for him to throw over the middle of the field. And with Tyler Boyd's ADP of wide receiver 33 going nearly a round and a half later than AJ Green, I'll take that every single day. You can see my ranking and ADP are right in line with each other. It's just one of those things where I'll take the value. If you're in an offense and you're deciding between Offensive Player 1 and Offensive Player 2. And Offensive Player 1 has an injury history. Could finish as the top 10 wide receiver, but he has an injury history. Or if you want to go with the more consistent guy a round and a half later, playing in the slot, a position that Joe Burrow likes to throw the ball to, I'll take that guy every single day. But it's one of those things where if Tyler Boyd goes off the board first and AJ Green falls, I'm totally cool with that trade-off as well. I just love this offense. I love the pieces on this team. They're going to be extremely fun to watch. So I will take as many Cincinnati Bengals as possible. If they fall to me, I'm not going to reach for them, but I love the draft prices for nearly every single Bengals player this season. Up next, we got the third wide receiver on this team. Now, there are a few other wide receivers such as John Ross and Auden Tate, but honestly, to me, John Ross is dead, and Auden Tate is also dead. They didn't pick up John Ross's fifth-year option, the former first-round pick, so I think he's gone this offseason. Auden Tate is now just getting minimal targets. I don't think he'll be able to see the field quite as often as he did last year with the return of AJ Green, and also because of this guy, AJ Green's future replacement, T. Higgins, wide receiver out of Clemson. He was the first pick in the second round by the Bengals in this year's NFL draft. And my player comparison for T. Higgins is AJ Green because they are almost the identical player. So in 2018, T. Higgins had 80 targets. He's from Clemson. I don't know if I said it or not. 80 targets, 59 catches, 1,100 yards, and 13 touchdowns. He had 12 touchdowns the year before, 13 this year. He's just a touchdown machine. Similar to a guy, I don't know, like AJ Green. His measurables are he's 6'4", 216, and runs a 4.59. So he's not the quickest guy, but he's just a big and strong wide receiver. When you watch T. Higgins highlights, it's one of those tapes where you just look and it's just like, this dude's just the best player on the field. He is head and shoulders better above everybody else, whether it's catch radius or making big plays or just manhandling other cornerbacks or safeties, whatever the case may be. T. Higgins is just a dominant wide receiver. This season, though, in redraft, there's not a whole lot of value there. He's going outside of the top 71 wide receivers being drafted, so he's going later than the 14th round. As far as data, I don't have anything past there, so I can't give an accurate representation for where he's going. But he's basically just going undrafted. We can kind of leave it there. And I have him ranked at wide receiver 73. But I want to talk about T. Higgins in terms of dynasty leagues. When you have a front office that pairs a quarterback with a wide receiver, especially of T. Higgins' caliber, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And this is why I'm so tempted to draft Joe Burrow in that second round, because I have multiple second round picks. And one of the things I'm considering is, do I just stack Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, because my second round picks are all right next to each other, and I think that's a possibility that I could get. It's just, I don't know. There's just an appeal of two guys coming into the league at the exact same time. They worked out together pre-draft. I don't know if it was I want to say maybe it was for the Bengals. But regardless, they've worked out together, so there is already an existing chemistry there. The one tidbit that I really love is Joe Burrow is wearing number 9 and T. Higgins is wearing 85. So a little bit of a homage to Carson Palmer and Chad Ochocinco. I love T. Higgins, especially with the fact that AJ Green is getting older, and it looks like that they might move on from him this season. I think they franchise tagged AJ Green this year, but after next year, who knows how that actually unfolds. We know AJ Green wants a contract extension, so that's actually another reason probably to take AJ Green, because once again, #contract year. But if they move on from AJ Green, T. Higgins will become the number 1 wide receiver for this team, and that has me super excited because of also, I'm high on the talent and I'm high on the quarterback. And for me, that's just an excellent combination, especially for dynasty football. But that's it. There's no value for T. Higgins this season. They are going to run a lot of 3 or 4 wide receiver sets. He's going to get on the field in those. But I'm not sure how many targets and what his actual true value for this year, 2020, is going to be. I like him more of the future play in dynasty leagues. And lastly, let's cap it off with the guy that you might not know of, but I think is interesting, definitely in two tight end leagues, but also just as a guy for a dart throw this season if you want to take a flyer on a guy that is going completely undrafted. And that is CJ Uzomah, 2019 tight end, 41 and 41 in standard and PPR. But this is what I want to talk about as far as the weekly finishes. He's done it before. 2 games of the tight end 1, 2 games of the tight end 2, 3 games of the tight end 3. Obviously, we kind of avoid those tight end 3 and kind of avoid those tight end 2 games. We don't love those. But you can see that he's kind of had some success. 40 targets, 27 catches, 242 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The tight end position for the Bengals has kind of been meh recently. Tyler Eifert had 1 great year, and ever since then it's been pretty much downhill for the Bengals at the tight end position. And this team does like to run a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, so that also hinders the tight end position quite a bit. But just as a guy who's going to see the field quite a bit, I think, this year, and on top of the fact that we saw last season, Joe Burrow. I feel like I've done that so many times in my head, and I don't know why. I think it's just that LSU thing. But Joe Burrow had Thad Moss last season, and he basically turned Thad Moss into a star. There's been a lot of talk about how good Thad Moss actually is, and a lot of people don't know, and that's just kind of the Joe Burrow effect. So there is a chance that happens with CJ Uzomah this year. Just a guy that I'm just keeping on my radar if you want to take that dart throw, if you want to punt your tight end position in your draft and just pick somebody up in the very last round like I've tended to do sometimes. He's just an interesting guy that I feel like I just wanted to bring up. I mean, he's going outside of tight end 25, and I have him ranked outside of tight end 25. But there is just that possibility if he can just be a guy that flashes here and there. If you're in a deeper league, he's just a guy to consider. Or if you just, once again, want to punt that tight end position, I really like CJ Uzomah this year. Just as that dart throw, you can cut him after week 2 if he hasn't done anything for you, and he's going to cost you absolutely nothing. But I think that pretty much does it for our player profiles for the Cincinnati Bengals. I love doing these. I love this series so much, and I'm hoping that I'm giving you value and insights on what players you should or shouldn't draft. I know I like to talk about guys in a positive manner, and I hate to think that I'm like a shill in that way. But for me, fantasy football is a lot more fun when you have positive things to say, and I do think that you can kind of tell the fantasy story and the outlooks for guys, because every guy has a potential to do something special each and every year. So I do like to focus on that, but obviously sometimes you have to come down with the hard truth on a guy like CJ Uzomah, who probably isn't going to be anything, but has that potential. AJ Green with the injuries, and T. Higgins with the understanding that he's not going to be a guy that's super valued this season, but maybe later years where he really emerges as a true top wide receiver 1 for an NFL franchise. But we're done here. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. We are doing a brand new content schedule because I felt like it was killing me. I felt myself drowning because I was doing 2 videos a day, Monday through Friday, off Saturday, Sunday, which in theory worked well, but I'm also working 40 hours a week, and there were other just ideas that I've wanted to do. I wanted to hit social media really hard, so I needed time to create social media content. And then just whether it was updating the website or just a lot of just moving parts here. So we are doing a brand new content schedule, and that's very simple. A video a day, Monday, every day of the week. It's not even Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. No. It's every single day. A brand new video is dropping. So we're reducing our load from 10 videos to 7 videos, and we are expanding every single day instead of just 5 days a week. Yes, it looks like it's probably a little more work, but honestly, I get back like 6 hours of time each week to do social media content. That's what I'm really excited about. So follow me on all social media channels at FFVulture. I look forward to connecting with you there. Be sure to text me 330-302-1554 because that's going to be my daily hub for all of my fantasy content this season. If you have any kind of advice or question that you need, that's the place to hit me up. I will guaranteed respond to you there. And that's it. So I'll see you back here tomorrow. What are we doing tomorrow? That's an interesting question. We are doing the Seattle Seahawks tomorrow. That's going to be fun. All right. I'll catch you guys later. Thank you for watching. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever. Later.